Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment in which I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Worcestershire. As Raw begins with the then, now, forever opening graphic, then it's interrupted with the static, and then all of a sudden the scary imagery of The Undertaker digging the grave and the scary imagery throughout that. Really cool, really interesting way to start the show. The women's champion Bayley comes out, says Wrestlemania a lot. She says, I'm going to Wrestlemania. When I was a kid, I used to watch Wrestlemania, but now I'm going to be in Wrestlemania. Wrestlingmania, yeah! Charlotte comes out, warns Bayley that Sasha Banks is going to betray her at Wrestlemania. Sasha comes out and says, that's not happening, but I am going to beat Bayley for the title at Wrestlemania. Almost says it in passing, very casual way. It was kind of a weird passing glance kind of comment. Then Nia Jax comes out. She says some stuff. All four of them fight. It turns into a tag team match, which we've seen. I think we saw this very matchup a few weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. There's a cool ending sequence with all four of the women. Bayley hits her finisher on Charlotte, wins the match for herself and Sasha. It's the strongest Bayley's looked in quite some time. She needed this win going into WrestleMania, but the victory is short-lived as Nia Jax clobbers all three of the other women and holds up the women's championship and looks at the sign. I just love when people acknowledge the sign as if it's a sentient being. It's like, you see this WrestleMania sign? This is going to happen at you. The Triple H Seth Rollins stuff, the hype for the whole show between the contract signing segment and the hype package later on, great stuff. I think it's the best built story going into WrestleMania on the Raw side, at least. The promo back and forth between Triple H and Rollins in the contract signing was great. Triple H cutting a promo that I guarantee was written word for word by Vince McMahon. The whole, what's so bad about success? Why are millionaires and billionaires the Antichrist? And this sounds like it's coming right out of Vince's mouth. Rollins' rebuttal basically says he wants his self-respect and his dignity back. He wants to be the wrestler he was before he met Triple H. They have a scuffle at the end. It looks like Triple H is going to recreate what he did a couple of weeks ago with the crutch to Rollins' knee, but Rollins counters out of it, launches Triple H out of the ring from the pedigree attempt, hits Triple H with a crutch, and going into WrestleMania now, Seth Rollins is looking tall, but he is weakened. He is injured still. And unfortunately, I think it's added a level of intrigue to the angle, but almost has kind of overtaken the storyline between these two. These two have a perfectly good angle going, and the hype package really did a good job of building that. But it seems that in like the real time, the big story is Rollins is hurt. How hurt's he gonna be? How long will he be hurt? How much will he get hurt by Triple H at WrestleMania? It's all about the injury of Seth Rollins' knee. And although it does add a level of intrigue to it, at the same time I feel like it's almost kind of overshadowing the other natural storyline progression that has happened. You know, it's too bad. I think Rollins getting injured, I think, really kind of threw a wrench into the build here. You know, obviously they did that, but I mean, just in terms of the narrative, it's all about the injury, and there's so much more they could explore that they did explore to an extent in that hype package where they intersperse a lot of stuff with Triple H, like on the throne, in the suit, in his gear, with the crown. Really cool imagery there. And so I think this was, and it really shows the history between the two. Show all the way back to NXT when Rollins was the first NXT champion. Really solid build here between these two. Here's a weird segment, the over-the-top rope challenge. Big Show versus everybody. He takes out Jinder Mahal quickly, Bo Dallas, both the Shining Stars, then out come Goldust and Curtis Axel and R-Truth, and everyone starts ganging up on Big Show. They throw him out of the ring. So does Big Show lose? Apparently not, because he just gets back in the ring and beats everyone up and throws them out, and then his music plays. So Big Show wins, but not so fast, because Braun Strowman comes out and he says, I'm going to beat everyone up at WrestleMania when I want to. Braun! And that was the whole segment. It was really confusing. The Cruiserweight time on Raw this week was dedicated solely to building up the Cruiserweight Championship match for WrestleMania, as well it should have. Earlier in the night, you had Austin Aries taking on Noam Dar, who looks a little off-putting, clean-shaven. Maybe I'm the only person who noticed that or cared about it, but he looked just so much more, he looked more the part as the sleazy, Alicia Fox thing that he was doing with a 5 o'clock shadow. Now he's clean-shaven, it's like, it's weird. Anyway, early in the match, Austin takes this huge, just sick chest bump into the turnbuckles. It's so hard. It's like Bret Hart style. Bret Hart was known for doing that as well. Austin Aries did a great job of it on Monday. He overcomes that. He beats he beats Noam Dar with the discus 5-arm, the last chancery to win the match, staring a hole through Neville, who's on commentary the whole time. Then later in the night, you have Neville taking on Jack Gallagher in a rematch from Fastlane. Nowhere near the level of competitive action that you saw in that match from Fastlane, but it was still a good match. Gallagher hitting his parasol spot from the top rope to the outside. Neville beating Gallagher after hitting with a superplex, followed up with Rings of Saturn, and then afterwards Austin Aries shows up on the screen doing the AANN, Austin Aries News Network. They're really building up this whole thing. He's a journalist now, and so he interviews the New Day, and it says that basically he has the New Day's blessing that he is going to win the championship at WrestleMania. A lot of people are mad that this match got moved to the pre-show. There's the kickoff, one of the kickoff matches for WrestleMania, and it's like I'm always kind of waffling on my thoughts about pre-show. On one hand, I'll go, oh, this person deserves better than be on the pre-show. The other hand, it's like, Mania is Mania. Like, they're getting a good payday out of this. They're getting paid a lot better here at the kickoff for WrestleMania than they would working any other of the other dozens of shows happening in Orlando WrestleMania weekend, I'll tell you that. So I think it's ultimately, you'll say, oh, it's not part of the official results of WrestleMania, but we all know. It's not like, oh, well, it's lost to time. Like, it happened. We know this. Wikipedia says it, so it's got to be true. So I don't think it's a huge deal that this got bumped to the pre-show. If anything, it's a good challenge to them for getting the show started on the right foot. If it is the opening kickoff match, it'll get the crowd hyped for it because they can deliver a very fast-paced, high-flying style. It will work. I think it's fine to have that match there in the pre-show. Next year, if the Cruiserweight division has built up some more goodwill, then yeah, maybe it'll get moved to the main card. But until then, I wouldn't get so worked up over it. Backstage, the tag champs Anderson and Gallows destroy Cesaro and Sheamus with some ladders. Later in the night, Anderson and Gallows are scheduled to take on Enzo and Cass in a tag team match. There's a match we haven't seen before, but before it really happens, Cesaro and Sheamus clock the champions with ladders. All three teams are fighting using ladders and stuff. And there's an old saying that if in the first chapter of a story they mention a gun on the wall, by the third chapter that gun better go off. Sure enough, if they're going to be using ladders in the backstage segment and then later on at ringside, then you guessed it, the Raw Tag Team title match at WrestleMania will be a triple threat ladder match. Nice little wrinkle added to this thing. I wasn't too interested in seeing these three teams fight again in just kind of a bland triple threat tag team match, so adding ladders should make things a little more interesting. Roman Reigns comes out to cut a promo. It's one of his best heel promos he's ever done, which is funny because he's not even a full-fledged heel yet. Obviously the signs are there and you think they're going to pull the trigger at WrestleMania. We'll see, but man, everything he said, he just had the cocky swagger and the smiles. Like, last time I was here in this building, I won the Royal Rumble, then I went on to main event WrestleMania twice. I'm like, no face ever says that, especially the way Roman Reigns did. There's cocky cool and then there's cocky heel, and this is definitely what Roman Reigns is doing. Then the Undertaker interrupts him with more of the pre-tape. We've been seeing the progression of the pre-tape stuff, the scary imagery with the Undertaker in the graveyard. Taker says some scary words to Roman Reigns in this package. He's sitting next to an open plot in this massive graveyard. It's very reminiscent of the stuff he used to cut like in the mid-90s, these kind of promos. God, he looks so old here, by the way. Then he teleports into the ring. He finishes his promo saying, "You'll rest in peace." Then he does this really weird thing where he raises his arms up. There's the thunder sound effect, and then there's this really awkward moment where he just slowly lowers his arms. The lights go out, and that was it. This, I laughed when it happened. It was this really awkward ending to this promo. I want to see physicality between the two of them. I guess they're saving it for WrestleMania, but at the same time, it's like really weird. Also, how strong are they making Roman look here? I mean, I know that's the old joke, we got to make Roman look strong, but he looks amazing in this feud right now because he has to be one of the only people I can ever remember going against The Undertaker at WrestleMania, who looks completely unfazed and unintimidated by what's in front of him. Because what's been the story with every single person over the last 10 years who's fought The Undertaker, especially heels, where it's like, I'm not scared of The Undertaker, I'm going to beat him. Then gong, oh, I'm actually scared of The Undertaker, oh no. So you always see that little intimidation factor. But Roman Reigns has shown none of that. Like, he does not care. He just knows he knows he is a dominant, he's the big dog now, dog, and he's going to take his rightful place at WrestleMania. And it's so confident and it's so headstrong, and you never see that. And like, that's kind of refreshing to see someone in his position just saying, you know what, my time is now. I'm going to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. That's all there is to it. There's no intimidation. There's no fear to it. He was briefly distracted a couple of weeks ago against Jinder Mahal with the gong there, but that's really been his only weak spot in this entire thing. The final match of the evening is a no DQ match between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Once again, for some reason, if Sami wins the match, he's in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania. If he loses, he's fired once and for all. It's so funny because earlier in the show, he's talking about Mick Foley, who was fired last week. He talks about him in this reverent past tense tone, as if Foley had died, as if Sami, I have to carry on his legacy and his memory. He's not dead. He's just taking time off for his hip surgery. Calm down, Sami. Also, this is the second time where Sami Zayn has tried to say, I'm entering myself into this match. And Stephanie goes, nope, you have to fight for it because I don't like you for reasons I'll never clearly explain. He did it at the Royal Rumble, and he did it for the Under the Giant Battle Royal too. It's like everyone else gets to say, I'm in the match, and that's all there is to it. But Sami has now had to fight his way into both of those matches and winning in very kind of unlikely circumstances. This was actually, even though I make fun of the fact that we've seen this match 100 times ever since Battleground, this was, I think, one of their better encounters. This is one of the few matches they've had where it actually goes a certain length. Sami hits Kevin with a plancha off the stage. Kevin hits Sami with a DDT on the steps, hits Sami with a big senton off the steps onto the floor. Really brutal stuff. And in the midst of this, no one is selling a damn thing. Samoa Joe comes out to help out Kevin Owens. Before he can really do anything, Chris Jericho's music hits. He hits Samoa Joe from behind, sneak attack, and with the distraction there, Sami Zayn rolls up Kevin to win the match and qualify, and he's now in the Battle Royal for WrestleMania. Good for him. Then Jericho chases out Kevin Owens, hits him with a chair a couple of times. Between this segment here and then the promo earlier in the night by Kevin Owens, where he kind of rebuts Chris Jericho's talk from last week showing the real Kevin Owens, I think this particular rivalry has been built very well leading into the big show. The final segment for Raw is the much ballyhooed, much hyped Lesnar-Goldberg face-off. The first time they've been in the ring at the same time for at least 2 or 3 weeks now. Paul Heyman comes out with Lesnar. It's a nice little homecoming in Philadelphia. He puts over Goldberg in a major way, saying he has respect and admiration for Goldberg and everything he's accomplished and what he's done to Brock Lesnar. But, the Beast is going to destroy the superhero. He says that Lesnar lusts for the championship, which, that's kind of gross. So Heyman says a little prayer for Goldberg in Hebrew, no less. Then out comes Goldberg. He says, let's bring a little bit of WrestleMania to Philly. And they're charging toward each other. Oh, they're going to have a big old fight. And nope, spear on the floor. That's it. I mean, really, would it kill you to have a little more intrigue and mystery? Just have the two, slug each other for a while, as it fades to black. Don't even have a conclusive winner. It's like, oh my God, we're out of time. You got to find out what happens at WrestleMania. At least it was better than the tug of war over the belt like it was a couple of years ago with Lesnar and Reigns. At least it was more physical than that. But Jesus, another just whole spear, bleh, and it's payback for the F5 from a few weeks ago. But, have some more intrigue. It has to be more competitive than this at WrestleMania itself, right? It can't just be 1 or 2 moves. I'm begging you, please don't let it be like that. SmackDown begins with a contract signing between Shane McMahon and AJ Styles. Shane puts AJ over in a big way here on the mic, talking about his phenomenal ability in the ring, talks about how he's always been the centerpiece of SmackDown in the 8 months since the brand split happened, but he says his ego has gotten the best of him and it's cost him all these opportunities. AJ says that Shane is going to be out of his element at WrestleMania. He says that Shane will be out of his element because it's a traditional match, which kind of gives away what's going to be happening. AJ says he'll embarrass Shane at WrestleMania. They have a very tense stare down after they sign the contract. Daniel Bryan tries to defuse the situation, saying, let's have a handshake, let's all be, shake hands here. And Styles refuses and walks away, and that's the end of that. Becky Lynch taking on Carmela in a rematch from last week, but who really cares about what's going on in the ring here when you have Mickie James and Alexa Bliss arguing with each other on either side of the commentary table? They start having a fight on the outside, it spills into the inside, it turns into a tag match. So now it's Mickie James and Becky Lynch taking on Alexa Bliss and Carmela. When we come out of break, it's Alexa and Mickie doing the bulk of the work, and Mickey's getting really worked over. Then all of a sudden Natalya comes out and interrupts, and she's on the commentary table. And then she gets up after a minute, and she tries to interfere. She gets kicked down by Becky Lynch. James Ellsworth trips Becky Lynch when the ref's not looking. Carmella rolls her up. The heels win, and then Naomi comes out, and then it's just a big old fight between all 6 women. I did love the spot where Naomi, she's running and just jumps and vaults herself into a Hurricane Rana spot onto Natalya on the ramp. That was crazy. I love that spot. Anyway, Naomi comes out and says she's going to be at WrestleMania now. So now you have the 6-pack challenge for the women's title at WrestleMania, which means that they've capped it at 6. That means there's going to be no Asuka, and worst of all, no Eva Marie. But seriously, this was an insane bunch of segments lumped in here. Miz TV time. The Miz and Maurice introduced the shocking conclusion to the Total Bellas, the Lost episode. It's more of the same from last week. More of Miz as Robo Cena, Maurice as Nikki, who's just trying desperately to get married to John. And then they introduced the new wrinkle, which is the Miz as Daniel Bryan, which was hilarious, treating him like kind of a baby figure. It was pretty funny. Then while in character, the Miz really obliterates John Cena as calling him a liar. He's just not a man. And then they break character. They take off the costume pieces. They look right in the camera, and they decide to bury Cena and Nikki some more. And it was kind of, this was great promo work by both of them, especially The Miz. I mean, we've been seeing his praises for a while now. This is some of the best mic work we've seen from him in quite some time. So after the parody segment, the real John and Nikki come out. They seem very laissez-faire about the whole thing. I mean, why weren't they mad? Why weren't they charged in the ring? It seemed very weird at the time. But then John Cena, again, Miz had some great mic work, and John Cena also has some of the best mic work I've seen in a long time. I mean, people want to hate on John Cena, but he's earned his keep in promos alone for the last 10 years as far as I'm concerned. And this was no exception. I mean, he just totally ethered The Miz and Maurice for what felt like 10 minutes. He undressed them verbally in the ring for what felt like forever, really laying out all the hypocrisies and the double standards that The Miz and Maurice have been espousing for months now, especially in this particular feud. Unfortunately, I don't think this bodes well for The Miz and Maurice at Mania. It's not going to, of course, even the way that Cena said, usually we'd say we're in the fight for the fight of our lives, but it's not. We're going to beat you. We're going to destroy you. It's like, well, you can't really argue with that, can you? So it is kind of giving away the finish here a bit. I was intrigued by this match to begin with, but I think this particular segment and also last week's stuff with the Total Bell parody in the first place has really gotten me hooked into this thing now. Now I really want to see what's going to happen. Even though, again, we know what's going to happen, it's still, they're talking people into the building, and that's what good promos are all about. The Usos, Breezango, and Dolph Ziggler with the most ridiculous ponytail of all time, taking on American Alpha, Slater, Rhino, and Mojo Rawley in 10-man tag team action. All 10 of these men are going to be in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at Mania, which means, sorry fanboys, the Usos will not be defending the tag titles against the Broken Hardys last minute at WrestleMania. Anyway, this match, not much to it. Mojo Rawley wins for the faces with a huge running elbow into the corner on Tyler Breeze, and that's all she wrote. Rawley looking strong, especially here. I don't think he's going to win the Battle Royal, but I think he's going to be one of the big shining points for the SmackDown side of things. Main event time is Bray Wyatt takes on Luke Harper in a non-title match. The first time these two have fought in a one-on-one situation. I wish this match were given more time, honestly. I think when you don't include the commercial break, I think it was only given like 5 minutes tops, so they didn't have a ton of time to work and tell a story, but they did the best they could. I think Luke Harper looking very good against Bray here, hitting him with 2 straight suicide dives to the outside, followed by a big boot. He tries to hit Sister Abigail on Bray Wyatt. He doesn't succeed with that, but he does hit Bray with the discus clothesline, although Bray gets a rope break, and so there's this brief moment here where Bray just kind of like stares into the eyes, stares a hole through Luke Harper, and Harper is briefly entranced and distracted, but that's all it takes for Bray to hit Harper with the Sister Abigail and win the match here. So Bray Wyatt's celebrating in the ring, and then the last 60 seconds of this show are some of those batshit insane I've seen in some time. Because what happens is Randy Orton comes out, he's on a pre-taped thing, he's standing over the ashes of Sister Abigail that Bray was in front of 2 weeks ago, and he takes the crucifix, I think he called it the crucifix thing, that weird badminton racket that Bray had last week. He stabs it into the ashes and says, oh, I'm taking the power away from you, Bray, by putting this in the ashes. When the fuck did this turn into an E-Fed? Like I said last week or 2 weeks ago when the whole baptism in the ashes thing, Bray was like, oh, Sister Abigail, she's not dead. I'm going to take her powers now. It's so like, two little boys arguing over each other, playing a fantasy game. Like, oh no, my ghost friend is not dead. In fact, I'm now imbued with his powers. Like, oh no, I have an invisibility cloak. Oh, well, I'm invincible now. Oh, I can fold space and time. That's what this whole thing is feeling to me like now. It's just like this whole one-upsmanship of weird mythological bullshit. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. It's just so bizarre. And the fact that it only took like, the thing with Randy Orton doing that was like 60 seconds, if not less than that. And like, this is your main event feud on SmackDown, and it was given so little time, and it's just so breakneck speed. Like, what just happened? And that's how the show ended. What the hell's going on? Time now for me to decide who won for the week. And folks, in my opinion, there's no contest this week. Raw wins as we head toward WrestleMania for the go-home week. SmackDown, in my opinion, the one shining beacon the whole show had was Miz TV. I think everyone there brought their A game in terms of promos. Not so much Nikki Bella, but everyone else involved I thought did great. That was just amazing mic work from Cena and Miz especially. But then you've got, the stuff with the women. It's something we've seen before the last 3 weeks, all these interruptions and these interferences and chaos. And we've seen this for a long time now. And this took up 3 segments of television for a match that's not even going to be on the main show. And what do you lose from that? You don't get any build for the Intercontinental Championship, and you barely get any build for the WWE Championship match. This focused so much on Wyatt and Luke Harper, who we don't even know what his status for Mania is going to be, where he's going to be involved, that there was so little time for Orton to do anything. And when he did, it was this batshit insane moment, this like 60 seconds of just like quick cuts and worms and ashes and a crucifix being stabbed in the ashes, and now your powers are being taken away. Like, what is going on? I've said in the past how 3 hours can be a drag for Raw, and it can take away from my experience and my enjoyment of Raw. But when you have 3 hours, you have more time to build up more stuff for WrestleMania, and that's what they did. I didn't care for the over-the-top rope challenge. I thought it was kind of weird. The awkward ending to Taker Roman Reigns, and then the very one-sided, unfortunate confrontation between Goldberg and Lesnar. Didn't care for that stuff. But I loved the hype for Triple H and Seth Rollins. I enjoyed the Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match, even though there wasn't a whole lot of selling. I thought the tag team title build was good. I mean, there wasn't a lot of wrestling involved. It was just all fighting with ladders. But there doesn't need to be wrestling because they're saving that for WrestleMania. And then most of the Undertaker stuff I enjoyed. You know, the interruptions at the beginning and during the middle with the graveyard and stuff. And the promo itself I thought was great too. So at the end of the day, it's go home week, and I have to decide which show got me more hyped and interested in WrestleMania. Even though SmackDown had a couple of bright points, overall I think Raw wins this week for me, hands down. Let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown in the comments section below, and don't forget to vote for which show you thought was better in the upper right hand corner of your screen. So that's the final Who Wore It Better before WrestleMania. Stay tuned to the channel later this week, either Friday or Saturday, for our WrestleMania predictions. Myself and Jay Biggs will be giving our predictions for what's going to happen at the big show. We'll be reporting to you from Orlando as we're there for WrestleCon with special guest D'Lo Brown, and of course the Internet Darlings Live. And one final piece of news regarding Internet Darlings Live, we now have a pair of tickets to NXT TakeOver Orlando we're giving away in a raffle, courtesy of WrestleRumble.com. The show's been sold out for a long time, you might know, and so this is like the last chance you'll ever get to go into NXT TakeOver if you're going to be in Orlando for WrestleMania weekend. But in order to get the tickets, you have to enter the raffle, and to enter the raffle, you have to go to the Internet Darlings Live. Get your tickets to the show in the link below. So folks, my voice is dying. I can't do this anymore. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and rest in peace.